Welcome to the MCTV News Weekly Update. My name's Tim Croteau.
And I'm Allie Reed. We've got a lot in store for you tonight, so let's get right into today's top story. Superstorm Sandy hit the New Jersey coastline with 80-mile-per-hour winds Monday night and hurled an unprecedented 13-foot surge of seawater at New York City, flooding its tunnels, subway stations, and electrical power system that powers Wall Street. At least 16 U.S. deaths were blamed on the storm, which brought the presidential campaign to a halt a week before Election Day. The power was out for hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers and an estimated 6.2 million people altogether across the East. Stock trading was closed in the U.S. for a second day Tuesday, the first time the New York Stock Exchange was closed for 2 consecutive days due to weather since 1888. As the storm approached the Northeast over the weekend, airlines canceled more than 12,000 flights in the region. Storm damage was projected at $10 billion to $20 billion, meaning it could prove to be one of the costliest natural disasters in U.S. history.
Hurricane Sandy also had devastating effects on the entertainment world. The Broadway community announced that all performances would be canceled on Sunday night and Monday night. Later, they announced that shows on Tuesday would be canceled as well. Many other theaters in the New York area quickly followed suit, and Avenue Q and Juilliard were canceled. Many New York-based TV series suspended production in preparation for the storm. These shows included Gossip Girl, 30 Rock, and Law & Order SVU. Jimmy Kimmel Live was scheduled to be taping in Brooklyn, and it was forced to cancel as well. But the talk show hosts did their best to carry on. The Late Night Show with David Letterman and Late Night with Jimmy Fallon taped on Monday without an audience. But according to Saturday Night's Seth Meyers, who was a guest on Fallon's Monday night show, all writers still had to report to work at 5 p.m. the next day.
So what do you do when everyone's telling you to stay at home until the storm passes? Apparently, you download movies. At least that's what Netflix saw when its viewership doubled on the East Coast during Sandy. The company didn't go into detail about the downloads, but it did say that there was a morning spike in the number of children's titles being streamed. Of course, many schools were closed for the storm, along with businesses and public transportation, giving download services like Netflix and Hulu a captive audience.
Well, I spent the whole day on Monday. We had the day off, and I spent the whole day, catching up on all the children's series, that I had been missing out on.
I was sleeping. I mean, I don't knock children's programs, but I enjoyed resting and not having to do anything.
It was a rainy day, so, everybody was inside kind of, and I'm not surprised. Well, anyway, while we were at war with nature, other parts of the world were fighting a more traditional kind of battle. Violence in Syria appears to be intensifying despite the latest attempt to put a ceasefire into place. Amid the fighting, Qatar has leveled its most serious accusation yet at Bashar al-Assad's regime, attaching the term genocide to the conflict. CNN's Nick Walsh offers more details from Beirut.
After the failure of the ceasefire to take hold on Tuesday, we heard harsh rhetoric from backers of the Syrian rebels. The Qatari Prime Minister, Sheikh Hamad bin Yasser Al Thani, referring to this as a war of extermination carried out with license from the Syrian government and international community. And the Turkish Foreign Minister, Ahmet Davutoglu, saying he wanted to rule out dialogue with the Syrian regime.
There is no point in engaging in dialogue with a regime that continues to carry out such a massacre against its own people, even during Eid al-Adha.
But after what activists refer to as record bombardment on Monday, the town of Marat Naman, that's a key place on a highway north that rebels are trying to hold, was again hit by airstrikes. 19 killed in one strike we hear there, and also the Damascus suburbs, eastern Ghouta, again pounded. This will be no consolation, though, to the regime, because another high-profile assassination occurred in Damascus of a key Air Force Major General, Abdullah al-Khalidi. It's not precisely clear what his role is within the regime, but the Air Force, despite being behind that air power, is also accused of masterminding much torture and repression of dissidents. So once again, the centre of Damascus, where so much of the regime is supposed to feel safe, clearly vulnerable. Nick Payton-Walsh, CNN, Beirut.
Meanwhile, in Indonesia, a 14-year-old girl was kidnapped and raped after accepting an older man's friend request on Facebook. She exchanged numbers with the man after having several conversations with him online in response to his willingness to help pay her school tuition. Their first encounter in person was uneventful, so the two agreed to see each other again. The Deepak native lied to her mother, telling her she was visiting a sick friend on her way to choir practice. She instead entered the Facebook friend's minivan, where she was driven to his home an hour away, locked in a closet, beaten, and raped. Thankfully, she was found near a bus terminal in late September, abandoned by the man she thought was her friend. The girl was among 5 others aged 14 to 17 who fell for the criminal's online tactics. Young women are targeted in these areas for their vulnerability. Kidnappers promise impoverished children to the gifts of gadgets and glamour sometimes they could not otherwise have. Parents and their children also are uneducated when it comes to social media, posting their home addresses and phone numbers for everyone to see, using no active privacy settings. Over 400 children were trafficked last year for sexual exploitation. 25% of these victims met their captors online.
Well, quite a serious story right there. It's definitely important, internet security, definitely once we have kids and everything like that, it's definitely going to be something we have to think about.
Yeah,
but,
especially because this is something we've grown up with and we don't really think
Exactly.
about, we take advantage of, but it really is terrifying for kids who don't know any better.
Yeah, definitely, the kids in India that, aren't as educated as, maybe certain Americans.
And there are still certain Americans that still aren't as educated as they should be.
Well, another chilling story comes to us tonight from Japan, where a U.S. Navy sailor has been found dead with a head injury at a train station. Local police say they discovered Petty Officer Second Class Samuel Stiles surrounded by 7 or 8 alcoholic drink cans on the station platform. Police say they're investigating his death as an accident or a crime. It comes at a delicate time for the U.S. military in Japan, after 2 U.S. sailors were arrested earlier this month on accusations that they raped a local woman. That case provoked an angry reaction from Japanese officials, and the U.S. military responded by imposing a curfew on its troops in Japan. Stiles' body was found at a time that suggests he may have been out in breach of the curfew.
But news from Japan wasn't all bad this week. Senior citizens took the stage for a cheerleading contest on Saturday in Yokohama, Japan. The Japan Senior Cheer Association launched the annual competition 4 years ago. Women over the age of 49 can enter the event. 90 dancers and 8 teams took part this year. The average age was 62, the oldest participant 75. Each team performed a 3-minute routine in matching uniforms. A 74-year-old cheerleader said she loves dancing because it energizes her. She said it makes her feel young again. A young woman who came to encourage her mother said all the dancers looked young and in shape. She said each performance inspired her.
Well, I'll tell you, that's a great story. I love when, people can get out and, interact with their community like that. So.
And I just love that it's like old people, because you always think, okay, they're on their couch, they're sitting in their wheelchairs. No, like these people are actually out there, they're being active, they're, standing against the stereotype of their generation.
Age, yeah. Well, I hope those ladies take the time to treat themselves this Halloween season. October 30th is National Candy Corn Day. In the 1880s, American George Renninger came up with the candy that is now synonymous with Halloween. According to the National Confectioners Association, more than 35 million pounds of the tricolored candy will be produced this year. That means that if you laid each piece end to end, it would circle the moon more than 20 times. Most of the candy corn consumed at this time of year is the traditional white, orange, and yellow variety. That color combination is popular around Halloween and has made its way to more everyday treats like cocktails and macaroons. So don't worry if you're craving some candy corn in other seasons, though. These days, there's candy corn for Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, and even Easter.
In other news, Payscale.com recently came out with a list of the top 5 cities for the young generation to work in. This online salary database composed the list looking at median earnings, commute time, and percentage of people aged 18 to 30 living in these cities. The best city for young people to work in was Seattle, where the median pay was $44,000. Known as Generation Y, Millennials, and the Internet generation, these young folks are known especially for being tech-savvy and obsessed with social media. The other 4 cities on the list were Houston, Minneapolis, Washington, D.C., and Boston. I love Boston. I want to move there, and I'm really happy that it's one of the cities on this list because I would love to be able to move somewhere that I can actually get a job and have it pay well.
Well, I grew up around Boston. It's a great city, but there are definitely some pretty surprising cities on this list.
Yeah, Minneapolis.
Yeah, who's going to be there? But it's good to see the economy kind of growing again. It's good to see that young people
definitely.
are getting out there and getting jobs.
Especially because it's so terrifying for us to graduate and then sit home for 3 years.
Definitely. Well, thank you very much for tuning in today. That's all we have. From MCTV, I'm Tim Croteau.
And I'm Allie Reed. Thanks for stopping by.